You want to start in it?
Gora Draganya Gana Gota Goloruharam Gora Buddha Chamagoda Kopa Gopala Gada Rati Jam Yati Singha Goram Goram Gora Draganya Gana Gota Goloruharam Gora. That's the echo of YouTube. So today we're going to start a new chapter. For persons who have the embankment of separation and may be following from the book, it'll be a little confusing for you because I think this was chapter 4 in the printed editions we've made so far, but in our discussions, this has become chapter 7, which is called the combined form of Radha and Krishna. The purpose of embankment of separation is to help devotees to understand something about the esoteric position of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Many devotees, they think of Mahaprabhu and they think, oh, he's the most merciful. He came to open up Govinda's restaurants and teach people about vegetarianism and reincarnation. And we can do so many bad things and worship him and everything will be okay. That's kind of a general attitude devotees have about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And they think that the real purpose of Mahaprabhu is just to give us access to Radha Krishna. What they don't understand is that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the principles behind Mahaprabhu, are the highest and most esoteric teachings of our Sampradaya. And so Guru Maharaj wants to show that, wants to share that with devotees. Srila Prabhupada instructed him that he should preach to the devotees. Guru Maharaj personally told me in New York in 1994, there are 3 things that are very important to him. One is that he wants to preach to the preachers. He feels unhappy when he sees the preachers falling down and going away. The second is that he wants to show that everything is in Prabhupada's books and that Prabhupada gave everything. And the third thing is he wanted to show that everything is in Prabhupada's movement. And the devotees who go outside for so-called higher teachings, they're not giving anything, they're just making some offense by leaving Srila Prabhupada. So I would like to do a little reading in this chapter. Let me see here. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. Ujjwal Prabhu, can you see that okay? Would you like to read the first paragraph or so?
Sure, Prabhu. Thank you. Chapter 7, the combined form of Radha and Krishna. Who can understand this Gora Tattva? It is very deep and confidential. Therefore, there is so much bewilderment and confusion. Gora is Krishna, and Krishna is Gora. The Tattva is one, they are non-different. But what is the difference? In Gora Swarup, Radha and Krishna combine together and appear in one form. In Vrajalila, there are 2 forms, Swayamrup Rasaraj Sri Krishna and Madanakya Mahabhavamayi Sri Radha. 2 bodies are there in Vrajalila, but in Gauralila there is 1 body, Eki Bhuta. Radha and Krishna combined together. That is the only difference between Gora Tattva and Krishna Tattva. Otherwise, there is no difference. Gora is Krishna, and Krishna is Gora.
So I'd like to focus on this a little bit today in our discussion. I don't know how much further we're going to get past this first paragraph. As Guru Maharaj is commenting here, who can understand Gora Tattva? Because it's very deep and very confidential. And because devotees don't understand it, there's so much bewilderment and confusion. And we should understand the principle that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna, and Krishna is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The tattva is one, they're non-different, but there's also some difference. So Guru Maharaj speaks something about that. I'd like to share a little bit with you separate from the book, some other writings. This is by a medieval poet. His name was Madhavi Das. He was a great devotee of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he wrote some very beautiful songs. Let's see here. I think maybe I could even sing this with the keyboard. So I'm going to put this on the screen. This is a song that Madhavi Das wrote some years ago that we printed in one of our Krishna Katana magazines. And he speaks about this tattva. Shamila Goravarana Eka Deha Pamarajana Ite Koro I Sandeha Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. He says that Shamila Goravarana, two persons, one is Sham, one is black, and the other is Gora, complexions of one, Eka Deha. Now they have one Eka Deha, they have one body. But the Pamarajana, the foolish people, sinful people, iti koro I sandeha. Sandeha, they have some doubts about this. They don't understand this principle. So we should understand something about the principle of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Madhavi Das goes on. Sorabeya Gora Murati Rasa Sa Pakala Bena Yaiche Fala Sahakar Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. He says that this form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Agora Murati Rasa Sar, it's the essence of rasa, rasa sar. It has a very, very sweet fragrance to it. Pakalabina Daichi Falasakar, just like a tree that has some very ripe mangoes. My grandmother used to comment that Radha Krishna Lila is like a green mango. And therefore if Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not there, we don't want to go there. We want to see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is part of Krishna, Radha Krishna Lila, but he's a fully ripened mango. And therefore the color is golden, which is the color of Madanakiman Baba Maya Radha. And the poet goes on, Gopa Janama Puna Dvija Avatar Nigamana Pai Niguda Bihar Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare. Gopa Janama. In his previous birth, he was a cowherd boy. Punadvija avatar. But now he's come in this manifestation as a Dvija, as a Brahman. Nigamana Paya. People become confused. They think, oh, where is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu described in Shastra? He's described there. But Nigamana Paya, the Vedic literatures can't touch Chaitanya Mahaprabhu because he's something much, much beyond the Vedic literatures. Because the Vedic literatures are there especially to help people to come to a more human platform. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the crest jewel of all the Vedic literatures. Our acharyas like Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, Rupa Goswami, and others have cited different verses from Padma Purana, Naradiya Purana, and other different Puranas and places which indirectly describe or practically directly describe Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But because these pastimes are very bihar, they're very secret pastimes, it's hard for people to understand them. And the poet goes on. Kakata Korola Hari Nama Vakana Nari Purusha Mukena Suniye Ana Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Prakata Korola Hari Nama Vakana. The Prakata Koroha, Prakata means to establish. He is establishing the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, and therefore Vrindavan Das Thakur says that Sankirtanai Kapitaro Kamalaya Taksha. That Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the father of the Sankirtan movement, and therefore he's like a fully blossomed lotus flower, Kamalaya Taksha. Now, because he's come to give these names, as Rupa Goswami is described in Laghu Bhagavatamrita, Sri Chaitanya Mukhodgina, Hare Krishna Tivanakaha, Najayanta Jagat Prem Vidayanta Tadavaya, that he gave these holy names to the whole world. And the poet Madhavidas says that Nadi Purusha Mukhi Nashuniyan, that from the mouth and mukh of all the men and the women in this world is the holy names. And they don't want to hear anything else. Nashuniyan, we don't hear anything else from their mouths. Korigora Charana Kamala Madhupan Sarasa Sangita Madhavi Dasa Bam Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Hare. So you may be wondering where the poet Madhavidas got his inspiration for the song. And he says, Kori Gora Charana Kamala Madhupan. Pan means to drink. Madhupan, Gora Charana Kamala Madhupan. I'm drinking the nectar of the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And by drinking that nectar, Sarasa Sangit, now I'm singing this very, very sweet song about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this is a very confidential subject matter. As the poet Madhavidas describes it, Pamarajana iti koro e sandeha, that the Pamarajanas, the fools and rascals, the sinners, sinful persons, they can't understand. They have some doubts about the position of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So many places our acharyas have described that actually Radha and Krishna are one. The two forms have become combined, and one is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Oftentimes I tell a story from a little known book, which is called the Narahariya Vishesha Parichaya. Parichaya means an appendix. And the Narahariya Vishesha Parichaya is an appendix to the Narottam Vilas, which is written by Narahari Chakravarti Thakur. So this appendix to this book was written by the disciple of Narahari Chakravarti, whose name is Ananda Narayan Maitra in Bhagavad Bhushan. He composed this wonderful description, and he tells a story which I think is very valuable for us to contemplate while we're trying to understand how Radha and Krishna become one with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, as the story goes, once at the temple of Govindaji in Vrindavan, Narahari Chakravarti was lamenting that he never got the darshan of Narottam Das Thakur or the associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He knew people who knew them. He knew people who had come in contact with Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. But he never got darshan of Vishwanath. So he's lamenting and lamenting. I always related to this because I joined ISKCON in 1982, which was about 4 years roughly after Srila Prabhupada left. And I joined in Los Angeles where Prabhupada had just been a few years before. And most of his disciples were still there. His room was still there. I used to go and clean his room. I remember going through his bookcase and finding a book, a guide to learn English. And the book had Prabhupada personally signed it in front of the book. But he didn't sign it A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he signed it by Charnada Venda, which is Srila Prabhupada, or by Chanande, I think it was actually. Prabhupada's Grihastani before he was initiated. In other words, it was a very, very old book. And so in that Los Angeles temple, we used to go to Venice Beach for morning walks sometimes, and we would go to Cheviot Hills Park, the places where Srila Prabhupada would go. And we were always feeling, man, this is really bad. Just a few years. I was living in Colorado when Srila Prabhupada visited Colorado. We were living in Colorado Springs. Probably a few times we've gone to Denver sometimes. Prabhupada visited Denver. It was possible even we could have driven by in a car or something and seen Srila Prabhupada. But I just wasn't so fortunate to be able to see that. So we were lamenting that. So I relate to this story. Narahari Chakravarti was lamenting and lamenting why I haven't seen these passings, why I'm so unfortunate I was born in such an inauspicious time. And he started bashing his head. And then he just started rolling on the ground and crying. And you've been to Vrindavan, yes? You visited the temple of Govindaji. It's the temple of Rupa Goswami. The top of it's broken off. And there's a lot of monkeys around. You remember that. And about, I don't know, 1.5 kilometers, maybe 2 kilometers away from that is the temple of Gopishwar Mahadev, which is right near the Rasastali. So Narahari started rolling on the ground, and he rolled on the ground all the way from the temple of Govindaji to the temple of Gopishwar Mahadev, like a couple of kilometers. And he was crying and crying. And then suddenly he saw the associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And his guru, he saw his Guru Maharaj, and his guru had told him, don't you see right here, there's Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, here's Narottam Das Thakur, here's Nityananda, but there's this one and this one. And then at that time, Nityananda Prabhu grabbed Narahari Chakravarti, and he said, here, let me give him and he gave him the Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu was dancing, he stopped and he took Narahari Chakravarti. And he said, what are you making jokes for? You should give him to Advaita Acharya. And he gave a Narahari to Advaita. And then Advaita, he said, what are you teasing me for? You should be given to Gadadhar Pandit. And so he gave him to Gadadhar. And then Gadadhar said, what are you saying? You should be given to Srivas. And he gave him to Srivas Thakur. And Srivas Thakur said, what are you saying this to me? He should be given to Sanatana Goswami. And Sanatana gave him to Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami gave him to Raghunath Das Goswami, gave him to Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, gave him to Jiva Goswami, who gave him to Narottam Das Thakur. And in this way, they passed him down to all the associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu until finally they gave him back to his Guru Maharaj. And then his Guru Maharaj took him and brought him back again to Nityananda Prabhu. And at that time, Nityananda Prabhu said, now I will accept it. Just see, anybody who tries to approach my Lord, my Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, doesn't go through their guru, I'll never accept them. I'll reject them. Just see how strong I am. And then he said, you deserve punishment. He told Narahari. And he grabbed him by the hair really hard. He took his head and put his head on the feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, forcibly. That's the punishment of Lord Nityananda. His punishment means that he was very happy with it. And then when that happened, suddenly everything changed. And then Nityananda Prabhu, he laughed. And he says, Narahari, what do you see now? And suddenly, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all of his associates disappeared. And instead of seeing Navadvip Leela, Narahari saw Vamsivat in Nitya Vrindavan, the place where Krishna performed the Rasa Leela. And there he saw Radha and Krishna sitting on a beautiful jeweled throne, and they were surrounded by different gopis and cows, and intimate cowherd boys like Madhu Mangal and Subal and others. Radharani was sitting on a throne, and Krishna was on his knees offering prayers to Radharani. Krishna had become enchanted and overwhelmed by the Baba Srimati Radharani. And Krishna told her, he describes in this book, he translates some parts of it. Shri Radhara Bhave Krishna Parama Vivala Radha Prema Ashvadeva Kohe Anargala Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Shri Radha Bhavi, Krishna Parama Vivala. Krishna Parama Vivala, he became overwhelmed with great feelings. And he said, hey, Shri Radharani, I want your bhav. Hey, Radhe, I want to taste your love. Radha Prema Asavidi, I want to taste it. Asavidi means to taste. Kahi Anagara, without any restrictions. And he said that when I get your love, Siva Bhakta Shange Prema Sankirtan, I'm going to do Prema Sankirtan with my devotees. What is the Prema Sankirtan of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Now, Guruma is just speaking here how Krishna Lila is Gaura Lila. The two are not different, but they seem different. In Krishna Lila, there's Kirtan going on the bank of the Jamuna, the place of Rasa Lila. There's Kirtan, the gopis are doing Kirtan. There's also Kirtan going on in Gaura Lila on the bank of the Ganga. But it's not being done with a group of ladies, it's being done with a group of men. But our acharyas have described that those ladies in Braj Lila have taken forth in male forms in Gaura Lila. And it's the same kirtan. And what is the necessity of those gopis appearing in Gaura Lila? Because Krishna can't taste, he doesn't know how to taste the love of Radha by himself. He needs the help of Radharani's Priya Sakhis, the intimate companions. And so those intimate girlfriends have come again in male forms, such as Lalita coming as Sri Damodar, and Roy Ramananda coming as, Vishaka Sakhi coming as Ramananda Roy, and Rupa Manjari coming as Rupa Goswami, etc. And so they're helping him to do this kirtan. Because the gopis, they're doing kirtan for Radharani. When Radharani is feeling separation from Krishna, those gopis are coming and they're doing kirtan. And they're not chanting Radhe, Radhe. They're not chanting Jai Nitai, Jai Gaur. They're chanting the names of Krishna. Because Srimati Radharani is feeling separation from Krishna. And she's wanting to hear his names. And so those gopis, understanding the mood of Radha, they're doing that kirtan. This is the kirtan of our sampradaya. And therefore Mahaprabhu said, Krishna said, Vilasiva Bhakta Shange. In that Bhakta Shange, in that association of those devotees, Prema Sankirtan. I'll do this Prema Sankirtan. Radha Radha Boli Lotarishi Angana. I'll chant Radhe Radhe, and I'll roll on the ground. Radharani, when she heard that Etika Shuniya, Radha Aidarya, Hiyaya, she became very, very disturbed. Aidarya. Darya means to be patient. Adarya means she can't stop moving. She becomes very disturbed. At that time, Nija Anki Krita Hashta Dharab Tabikoi, she grabbed a hold of Krishna's hand and she put Krishna's hand in her lap. And she was holding onto his hand and she told him, Oh, hey, Prananatha, Tumi Brajendanandan. Hey, you're my Prananath. You're the Lord of my life. You're Brajendanandan. You're the son of the king of Braj. What do you want to pry into this Dukini Bab, the feelings of this mad woman, this Dukini lady? They call me Pagalini Radha, mad Radha, Dukini Radha, who's always very, very sad. Tumi Brindavani Raja Rajeshwara. You're in Vrindavan here, Brindavani, Raja Rajeshwara, you're the Lord of all the Lords. So Tomari ki Shobiveki why are you interested in my feverish emotions? Bhavadvara, Dvara means a fever. Radharani's emotions are very, very feverish. And she says, besides, you don't understand. If I don't see you just for one moment, then I feel like a lightning bolt has hit me on the head. And if you go away, then I just stand motionless with all my girlfriends staring blankly down the path. But just by seeing your moon face like that, right now my heart's fulfilled. But if I can't see it, then only Lalita knows what happens at that time. And then Lalita, she spoke to Krishna. She addressed Krishna's Kala Chandra. Listen, Kala Chandra, dark moon, Krishna. Radharani's eyes are just like wagtail birds that are moving back and forth. And you become mystified and bound up by the playful movements of Radharani's eyes. What can I say about Radharani's bhav? When she addressed Krishna's Nagra, the joy of ladies. Oh, Nagra, you know all about this because you're an ocean of rasa. That person says that Radharani's bhav can be put into words. What can I say about such a fool? They're just trying to depict an ocean with the water in a calf's hoof print. He said, all I can say, Lalita said, is that when you're absent from Radharani, then I'm the one who has to take care of her and somehow or other help her to stay alive. I'm her only friend at that time. When Sham Roy Krishna heard this, he smiled. And he said that, whatever is known in my mind is only known by my flute. In other words, he's telling Radharani, you're very fortunate. Your mind is known through Lalita and through Vishaka. But my mind, I don't have such association. All I have is Nirvansi. Nirvansi, my flute, is the only thing. So then Krishna turned to Lalita and he said, hey, Lalita, please listen to me. I'm pleading with you. Please give me Radha Bhav and thus clear my debt. Because Krishna, he says to the gopis, that I've become in debt. I've become a rini. Rini means a debt. So you want to get married. But if you're in debt, 1 million euros or something like that, when the girl's parents find out that you're in so much debt, they'll say, no. You shouldn't marry him. It's very bad. No one wants their daughter to marry a boy who's in debt. And Krishna wants to be freed from the debt because Krishna promises, Yeyatamam prapadyante tam sataiva bhajamiham, that I reciprocate with whoever approaches me. However they approach, I reciprocate in the same way. But he says to the gopis, napadyeham, I don't know how to reciprocate with you because your prema is niravadya samujaya. It's spotless. You don't want anything for yourself. You only want my pleasure. How do I repay that debt? So Krishna tells Lalita, hey, I have this debt. To repay this debt, I need to have Radharani's love. Because if you borrow from someone 10,000 British pounds, and then you have to pay them back, and you say, I'll give you 10,000 Hungarian florins instead. Will they be happy with that? I don't think so. It's 10,000. You see the bills per day, it's the same number. No. You have to pay in the same currency. So Krishna has a debt, and the currency is love. But Krishna doesn't have that wealth. What's he going to do? So he's begging, please give me this thing. And Lalita said, look, the two of you, you're the reservoir of rasa, and Radharani is the abode of prema. Krishna's Rasa Raj, and Radharani's Madanaki Mahabhavanayi. Radharani is the reciprocal and shelter of your rasa. So only you two know yourselves. Only you two can understand the meaning of your own statements. How can I understand the agony and the ecstasy of your love? And then Krishna says, hey, Lalita Sundari. He said, all of you young maidens of Braj, you're my prana, you're my life. And then Lalita, she shakes her head and she turns to Radharani and says, Radharani, I think your boyfriend's gone mad now. He's gone crazy. He doesn't understand anything that I'm saying. And when she says this, at that time, Prema Moyi Radha, who's the abode of prema, of love, Radharani caught hold of Krishna's other hand and holding both hands in her lap, she told him in a sweet voice, listen, honey, what will happen if you take my feverish emotions and you go and do Sankirtan? You're going to be rolling on the ground and your body is so soft like butter, you're going to become hurt. So listen, here's what we'll do. You hold my hard soul in embrace. Let my complexion and my mood cover yours. And so my complexion will protect you when you start rolling on the ground. And this is one of the reasons why Shyamasundar, Krishna, Blackest Krishna, has become Gaurasundar, golden complexion, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So at that time then, Narahari was watching all this, and then he saw in front of him Radha and Krishna become one, as Shambhur, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then again he saw Navadvipa, and he saw all the devotees coming together again and doing kirtan. And he spent the whole day and the whole night there, laying in front of the deity, Gopishwar Mahadev, and crying and crying. And at that time, all the Vaishnavas, all the Brijbasis, they came there. They kept coming all night long and surrounding him with great love. And they were calling out to him, Ganesham, Ganesham, hey Ganesham. They were so happy. They weren't envious. They wanted to see that somebody has some happiness and ecstasy. And then all of a sudden, after an entire day and night laying there unconscious, suddenly Narahari, was also known as Ganesham, your guest name is Ganesham, it's his birth name. Suddenly Ganesham Narahari Chakravarti jumped up and started shouting, Haribo, 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 and jumping up and down in ecstasy. And then all the devotees are began crying in happiness. And he said, Prema is again manifested. So this story, which some of you have heard me tell a number of times, one of my favorite stories, illustrates many points nicely that Guru Maharaj is telling here in the beginning of this chapter. One thing is that this Gora Tattva is a very deep and confidential tattva. And as the poet Madhavi Das described, that those persons who are Pamarajana, they can't understand this tattva. Pamarajana ite kora isandeha. They have some doubts about the position of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because it's a very deep and very, very confidential tattva. A few people may understand Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the way that Vrindavan Das Thakur is described in Chaitanya Bhagavat, which he presents him basically as Gaura Narayan, that he is Bhagavan and he's God. But Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami presents Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Radha Bhava Duti Suvali Tam Noni Krishna Surupam, as Krishna, but the combined form of Radha and Krishna, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nahi Anya, how Radha and Krishna become one as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that oneness is understood in different ways. We've also commented on this many times before. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're one in a form, but we don't see any difference between the Bhav of Srimati Radharani and Radharani. And this is the proper worship of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I'd like to share with you a statement from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Let's see. Hare Krishna, Krishna Bhavan, Prabhu, nice to see you here. So I want to share the screen with this beautiful quote from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. See, Krishna Bhavan, would you like to read this? Can you see it okay?
See, Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
This is the translation of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's purport to Chaitanya Bhagavat, Adi 1165, in the performance of Kirtan. Can you read that?
In the performance of Kirtan, which is the service of Sri Gaura Sundara, the worship of Gaura is the worship of Krishna, and the worship of Krishna is the worship of Gaura. Not understanding Sri Gaura Sundar as Krishna and considering Sri Nityananda Swarup as merely a spiritual master, foolish, ignorant people fall from the devotional service of the Lord. Moreover, if they consider that the pastimes of Gaura are not those of Krishna, but only the pastimes of a devotee, then they meet a similar fate. The pastimes of Sri Krishna are Sri Gaura Sundar's pastimes of giving conjugal enjoyment. They are not contaminated with the philosophy of Prakrita Sahajiyas, mundane devotees. If a sadhaka considers that the pastimes of Sri Gora are not those of Sri Krishna, but a separate manifestation of variegated material enjoyment, he falls from his position and becomes a conditioned soul. Then, leaving the service of Lord Krishna, the illusory energy supplies him the evil propensity of imagining to enjoy Gora. The pure devotees of Gora do not associate with such so-called Gora Bhaktas, who are actually servants of Maya and followers of the Shakta philosophy. In the consideration of the pure devotees, mixed devotion service is prominently found in the 13 pseudo-Vaishnava upper sampradayas like Bola, Sahajya, and Gora Nagari. Giving up such unwanted association is an exhibition of non-duplicitous devotion to Sri Gaurasundar. Until the propensity for serving Krishna is awakened in the heart of a living entity, his clear perception of Sri Gaurasundar remains covered by the spirit of material enjoyment. When this covering is removed, then under the guidance of Sri Advaita Prabhu, one soon attains the fortune of seeing Sri Gaurasundar.
Sure. A really packed statement, isn't it? There's so many important points that it makes here. One that really jumps out to me is that if a sadhak considers that there's some difference between the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishna, and he thinks that these pastimes are meant for my enjoyment, my pleasure. Indirectly here, he's indicating that this is our nature in the material world. We're all wanting to have a good time. I don't mean to be disparaging or negative, but to use an example, we want to go to the Kirtan Mela because it's a big party for you. And it's lots of fun. We have nice prasadam, nice food, and nice music, and it's like a rock concert or something like that. And Srila Prabhupada told us that's okay. But at the same time, if we want to go deeper, if we want to really deeply understand Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, if we really want to deeply understand the Kirtan of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and this Kirtan, first of all, he describes the Kirtan of Mahaprabhu is a service of Mahaprabhu. That's how we worship Mahaprabhu, by worshiping Krishna. And worshiping Krishna is how we worship Mahaprabhu. We do this Kirtan, Mahaprabhu is pleased by that, but the Kirtan is Krishna Kirtan. So we're worshiping Krishna, but that's actually worship of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. So if someone considers that these are just for their own pleasure, then he says that the illusory energy will give that person the evil propensity of imagining to enjoy Gora, directly or indirectly. What does it mean, the evil propensity to enjoy Gora? How can we enjoy Gauranga Mahaprabhu? Maybe some devotees can give some different ways. I can think of a few right off. That someone may advertise themselves as a great devotee of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And thereby they're using Mahaprabhu for their own pleasure. Anybody else with any other ways? What's another way that someone may enjoy the Gauranga Mahaprabhu?
When they say Mahaprabhu, they want to love people with their ecstasy, and so they want to be to enjoy the Mahaprabhu and receiving the Lord, but not to understand the Lord.
So I don't know if you could hear what she was softly saying, but she's saying that some people, when they chant the Hare Krishna mantra, they're doing it because they want some ecstasy. I found that a good point that it's expressed, because this is the nature of what Prabhupada repeatedly called the Prakriti Sahajas. Sahaja, the word Sahaja is a common word in Bengali and in Hindi and Oriya. Sahaja, this means easy or natural. Sahajiya is someone who takes things in a very easy, cheap kind of way. And Prabhupada used that, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta used that word to describe people who were taking it in a very cheap way. I can experience some ecstasy right away, that this is their desire. But we read in Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that devotees like Daruka, when he was fanning Krishna on the chariot. Daruka is Krishna's chariot driver. When he was fanning Krishna, he started exhibiting ecstatic symptoms. He started feeling tears are coming to his eyes and his hands were shaking. And Daruka started praying to Krishna, please make these ecstatic symptoms go away, because they're disturbing my service. Because my service is everything. As Andy said, some people want to try to enjoy the Lord in a subtle way. In one sense, we're all meant to relish Krishna consciousness. But that relishment is done as a service, and is a very subtle but very important distinction between relishing for my pleasure and relishing as a service to my Gurudev and to our Parampara, doing kirtan for their pleasure. And relishment of service means that I'm relishing, I'm thinking of the pleasure my Gurudev gets. I'm thinking of the pleasure Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gets by my doing this kirtan. This kirtan is for them. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta goes on, he says that the pure devotees of Gauranga Mahaprabhu, they don't associate with such Gaura Bhaktas. They're actually servants of Maya and followers of the Shakta philosophy. And this is an interesting thing, is I've been thinking about this subject recently quite a bit, about associating and not associating. What's really association mean? Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that real association means in the heart, not just externally and physically. Because we see in the Sangha Vaishnavas, many times there are different persons there, some of whom may be offenders or have done some evil, terrible things, but it doesn't mean that the devotees necessarily won't do kirtan with them. But they don't share these 6 loving exchanges, especially Guyamakati Krichiki. They don't reveal their heart to such a person. For the sake of the movement and for the benefit of that person, they'll go on. If we only do kirtan with pure devotees, then you're going to stop the Harinam. Then you're going to close the temple. You're going to lock it up and nobody's going to go. We do kirtan with everyone, but at the same time, this principle is there that we want to be careful who we associate with. So we have to learn the subtle art of association. And that subtle art is there, that association doesn't just mean a physical association, that you're taking, someone took a photograph of you with this person, you offer obeisances to somebody, you sat in somebody's class, you did a program together with them. It doesn't mean that person's so close with them. We want to go close and associate very deeply with persons. So if someone is in Maya, and someone, he says, are followers of the Shakta philosophy, follow the Shakta philosophy, is seeing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for their own pleasure. He says, in the consideration of pure devotees, mixed devotional service, these 13 pseudos Vaishnava Sampradayas, the Baal, Sahajas, Gauranagas, etc., they're mixed devotional service. Now, if you study the writings of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, you'll find a great, great contradiction. On one hand, Bhaktivinoda speaks about, in a respectful way, he speaks about Christians, and he speaks about Muslims. And he says that we should respect all different religions and things. In a similar way, Srila Prabhupada. I often cite this letter that he wrote to the Governor General of Canada, Ronald Mitchell. Just a few days ago, we were mentioning this letter. And Prabhupada said in that letter that people can be a Muslim or Christian or Sikh or Hindu and still be part of the Krishna conscious movement and keep their religion. So we're very, very broad. But it's not that we're preaching that everything is all the same and that you can come and today we're going to chant Hare Krishna, tomorrow we're going to recite the Lord's Prayer. And today we're hearing from Shiva Ramaraj, and tomorrow we're going to hear from the Cardinal of Hungary. We're going to hear some Christian thing or something. It's not that we just mix everything together. We respect everyone, but simultaneously we have to learn the art of being careful with our association. And this is an extremely, extremely important principle. It's very, very important for the health and well-being of our society. As long as the society is neophyte and the devotees don't understand so much philosophy, they don't understand who is good association, who's bad association, And that good association doesn't simply mean that someone's good association because everybody else says so, or because they have a big position. The good association means someone who has affection for me, and it means that someone who's speaking about Krishna and they're more advanced than me. They're quoting Shastra. They're not exploiting me. So that's good association. And that good association is not something that you can market or impose as an institutional standard. That now we're making a proclamation in South Africa that Chaitanya Prabhu is good association, and we'd like to instruct all the devotees, you should all go to his house at least once a day to give some offering of flowers and money, preferably in cash, to Chaitanya Prabhu. He likes that one. Because this is, we've all ascertained like this. You can't instruct someone who their friend is, who their guru is. It's a kind of violence, and it's nonsense. And it's difficult in a society because in a society, an institution, we have a hierarchy, and we respect someone who's a temple president, someone who's a BBC, someone who's a guru of many disciples. We respect them for those positions. But that, just because they have those positions doesn't mean that they have to be my guru. Just because there's so many ladies present and I give respect them doesn't mean they're all the same as my wife. There's so many boys are there, they're all the same as a husband. We have to be very careful who we're going to choose for our friends, for our long-term relationships. We have to learn the art of respect. We bring respect to everyone according to the positions. A Prabhupada disciple, he's a GBC, he's a guru, he's a temple president. I've done so much service. I give so much ecstatic, loving respect for them. But it may not be my person. This lady's very beautiful. She's very qualified. That's nice, but she's not my wife. I have my wife. I have my guru. This other sadhu is a very nice sadhu. I appreciate, but I have my guru there, and I should be fixed in service to him. So we need to learn this art. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, although he preaches in a very, very broad way, especially in Krishna Samhita in the beginning, he speaks about how sectarianism causes all kinds of problems. But then in other writings, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhaktisiddhanta speak about the upper sampradayas. So on one hand, they're saying that you can be a Christian and that's okay, and a Muslim, you don't have to change that, and we respect you. But on the other hand, they say, don't hang out with the Gauranagas, the people who offer flute or peacock feather to the deity of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They treat Mahaprabhu as a naga, as an enjoyer. Avoid that association. Avoid the sahajas and the bhaus and that type of association. So the two things are there, and it may seem like they're contradictory, but if you contemplate it deeply, they're not. One is a very general principle that we appreciate with all of our heart. Today we were walking past the church just here in the corner of one of the temple. It's about 12:30, I think. There's still a few people coming up of the church. And for me, you guys grew up in Hungary, and this is a common thing for you. But in America, to see a church that's even 50 years old is amazing. What to speak of 200 or 300 years old? Something. I think many churches older than that here in Hungary. So it's very charming to me to see that. And I'm so happy to see the community coming together and the wishing God. And so some people coming out of the church, and I noticed some of them were looking at us. Krishna comes wearing the sari and wearing the dhoti, and they're looking at us. And I turned, and I just, it wasn't that I gave it, I just a smile lit up on my face because I was really happy to see them. And this lady noticed my smile, and she lit up, and she smiled back at me very, very happy. And I just thought this is a nice exchange. So we should appreciate that. But at the same time, I'm not so enthusiastic about going to their programs and hearing the sermons in the church. And to be really blunt with you, many years ago, I stopped listening intimately, deeply, to many devotees in our movement if they don't quote Shastra. I'm their friend. I work together with them. I may have a very loving relationship and joke with them and do different things with them. But for me to hear deeply from someone I want someone they should quote Shastra. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there. We're a little later than I wanted. And now we want to ask everybody if they would like to share any thoughts. Hemanti, would you like to share anything today? I'm sorry we didn't give you a chance to read. We only had a couple of readers today. We had a lot of little things I wanted to cover. We'll go on with this chapter in the next session. Can we see you?
So, Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept humble obeisances of Lord Srila
Are you feeling
Prabhupada.
better now?
Yes, much better. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Any
Thank
reflection?
Yeah, I first wanted to thank you so much for sacrificing your time every week and having the Sangha. In our Yatra at the moment, we're having our December book marathon. So today felt like such a nice spiritual injection for me for the week ahead. And I especially liked what you also mentioned about association and what good association means and the criteria for that. So that's something that I learned today, and that's going to stick with me. Thank you, Prabhu.
It's just like in your family. I don't know you so well, Monty, but I think that you come from, this is the way you look. I mean, I think you come from a cultured family, and you come from Indian background. Probably you're close with your mother and your grandmother, and you have aunties and uncles, and they're good people. They have some good culture, but at the same time, they're not all the same. And there's probably, don't be offended, but there's probably some of them who might be a little bit crazy, in your opinion. There might be some of them are a little bit angry, but they're still your family members. You love them. You really genuinely love them. But you don't hang out real close with some of them. Some of them don't like the devotees. Maybe some of them want to drink or this or that, and you're not close with them. But you still love them. That's the art of association in our family and also in our society too. It's a very, very important concept. So that's good. I hope you have a good marathon. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
We want to come
Please
in
just
and
give us your blessings.
well, please. That's why we want to do this program. So we're not doing it. It's not a sacrifice for me. Rather, it's a pleasure for me because I get a chance to associate with you in a deep way, and that's part of our principle. We want to associate with like-minded devotees. And it may be today we have what, 4 persons online. It's not that the numbers, but it's the quality. We need association, otherwise we'll go crazy. We need to cooperate with society. But if everything is a Sunday feast program, or the group of people coming into the restaurant every day, the windows, and that's your association, you go crazy. Because you need someone who can speak something more confidential, someone who understands your heart. Thank you, Hemanti.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hey, Viren, would you like to share anything? Can we get to see you also? Very, very rare Viren darshan. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Sure. Once again, very, very nice class. Not much from my side. I think the one thing that I really appreciated was, the point where you mentioned where Krishna, where he says, sorry, I forget the yeah. So as one, as he approaches Krishna, reciprocates, but with the gopis, he's unable to reciprocate because their love is spotless, and he had to. I'm trying to remember exactly what you said. It was so when he turned to Lalita and Vishaka Sakhi, to then to learn from them, if I can call it that, and I really appreciated that. I found that to be very sweet, but for some reason also, my mind's going back to a point last week, that Krishna Balaram Prabhu raised, and that was that. When Krishna stole the prem from Radharani's heart, that which was left was then Gadadhar Pandit. And I'm still trying to think, you would expect Krishna to steal everything. So, I'm sorry, but it's just in my mind, like he's an expert thief. So in my mind, I was just trying to also understand, why wouldn't he steal everything, and why would he leave something?
Well, it's just that
Yeah.
when a thief goes to rob a bank, he may take all the money from the bank, but he can't take the bank vault. He can't take the building. And in this particular case, we might compare if the wealth that you took out of the bank was radioactive. Radharani's Bob is multi-radioactive, so potent that radioactivity permeates the whole building, and the whole building is radioactive. So Srimati Radharani, there's no difference between her form and her bhav, her emotions. And so Krishna's come and he's taken that bhav, but there's still that thing which was housing, which is keeping this bhav there, it's still left, and it's still radioactive. That's the best example I could think to try to illustrate this. It's a little clumsy, but
No, that makes sense. Thanks, Prabhu.
you always have some beautiful comments. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And how about Bhanavarni? Would you like to share something today?
Hare Krishna. There was so much, but I was thinking about a couple points. One thing I thought was really sweet was this comment you made about how Srimati Radharani wanted to protect Krishna with her effulgence, her complexion, because she was worried he would hurt himself. That was really amazing to hear. And another point at the beginning, I think you just said it kind of quickly, but I was thinking about it. Your Guru Maharaj says, if Gauranga is not there, then we don't want to go there, something like this. I was wondering if you could speak something on that a little bit, because I was just thinking how, Radha and Krishna and Gauranga, they're the same, but there's something special there. There's something different. So I'm just wondering what you think your Guru Maharaj is saying.
Who's a Prayojanacharya, and his Tulsi Manjari Krishna Leela, has given us a hint in his final prayers, his Swamiya Dasakam, his 10 self-imposed vows. And he says there that one of the verses, he says that even if Krishna personally calls me, if Radharani is not there, I won't go there. He said, but on the other hand, if I hear that because of some madness or something, Radharani leaves Vrindavan and she goes to Dwarka, then even if I'm not invited, I'm going to run there. So in a hidden way, that gives us some understanding. Because what is it that we find of Radharani and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Radha Baba, Jyoti, Subhalatam, Namo Krishna Swrupam is Krishna, but Radharani's Bhav is prominent. So it's that Bhav of Radharani that we want to facilitate and that we want to search for in Gauranga Mahaprabhu. It's that Bhav of Radharani. And if it hadn't been for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we wouldn't understand that Bhav of Radharani. So even though Krishna may be there, and that's nice, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta once said, something to the effect that the only reason we worship Krishna is because Radharani likes him. That's our only reason we worship Krishna. Our primary role is to appreciate Srimati Radharani, but we do that through Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by understanding his bhav and emotions. Mahaprabhu, we can approach Mahaprabhu through Dasya Bhav, to servitorship, to our disciplic succession, because he's there in a male form. Approaching Srimati Radharani and trying to do service for her in the Kunjas is a very, very high, intimate, esoteric thing. It can only be done in the form of a gopi. But everyone can worship Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And if we try to understand his mood, the mood being that of Radharani, then we enter into a very, very deep thing. Is that a little helpful? Is that
Yes.
helpful?
Yes, thank you. And then one other thing, you were speaking about the importance of hearing as a service and not for our own pleasure, I think. Yeah, that it's just a little hard for me to wrap my head around.
It's a little scary, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm like,
You know, like we came back from the Harinam, man, that was rocking. I just really loved that tune that Dave Matta was singing and this and that. And then you start, wait a minute, my what's my mood in the kirtan? We're all like that, and that's a fact. That's our situation. We can't. Let's not try to pretend that we're so elevated that we're not enjoying the kirtan. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, therefore, although famously he would sometimes have devotees like Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar sing, who were not such good singers, but to illustrate that bhav is the most important point. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta also, one thing many devotees don't know, is that he told the devotees we should make melodic kirtan with very nice melody and nice singing, because outside people will be attracted by that. If we just have someone who was at Bhuvaneshwar Prabhu in Vrindavan, you ever listen to Bhuvaneshwar Prabhu's kirtan? It's a little bhavuk, a little off key, and so many things. It was ecstatic, but if you bring him to New York City or something, probably a lot of people wouldn't be able to appreciate. Whereas we have someone like Genevieve Harrison, singing, everybody becomes very, very charmed. She's so melodic. We wanted the bhav as a main thing. Therefore, some persons say that the original name for India is Bharat. And Bharat is a compound word of 3 syllables, ba, ra, and ta. And these 3 are the 3 elements of Sangeet, or of music. Ba means bhav, ra means rag, and ta means ta. And these are the order of their importance. Bhav is the most important thing in singing. And even if someone sings completely out of key, completely out of time, but if they're singing with emotion, everybody starts crying in the kirtan. It's the most ecstatic kirtan. It's the most successful kirtan. The second thing is rag, which we could roughly translate as melody. And those ragas, they establish different moods. And for example, a Sabari rag, Asabari, the great hope. It's a pouring forth of the heart. And just if someone sings it in a very contemplative mood, that raga will enter into their heart and they'll feel something of the feelings of separation just through that raga. But the raga is a secondary thing to bhav. And then the third in the list is the tals. And similarly, just as the raga can evoke different emotions, the tals or the beats also evoke different emotions if we do them properly and we become absorbed in them. But the main thing is the bhav. All 3 of those things are there. So is that helpful, something? Let me reflect a little more on what you were saying. That, yeah, we should be careful. We should be contemplative in our kirtan. This is the first thing that we can come to a conclusion with. We're not condemning anyone by saying, man, that was a rocking kirtan. I really like that. We're not going to condemn anyone for saying, wow, I just love those Thursday night kirtans at the Bhakti Center, and I want to go every week, and man, they're just rocking the walls. I want to attend for that. We're not complaining about any of that. We understand, however, that that's a secondary lower motivation, and we're happy to see they're becoming purified by attending. So what we want to do is we want to come to the point we're going to the kirtan because it pleases Prabhupada. It pleases my Gurudev. It pleases the Vaishnavas. It pleases Radha Murlidhar and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's for their pleasure. But that's a very, very subtle thing. So how can we begin with that? If we begin our kirtan with some statement of purpose, a sankalpa, we contemplate what it is that I'm doing here. And that's one of the reasons why when we begin our kirtan, how do we start? Ideally, traditionally, we start not with Prabhupada's pranam mantra. We may do that as a group, but we start with Om Agyanatimirandasya. I'll start with my Gurudev's pranam mantra. And then my Param Gurudev, in my case, Srila Prabhupada. And then maybe Vanchakalpatarubhishcha, the Vaishnavas. And then the Panchatattva mantra. And meditating on each one of them, we're meditating that this kirtan is meant for their pleasure. In effect, that Mangalacharna that we're doing, traditionally, it's what it is in Mangalacharna, that Mangalacharna is also kind of sankalpa, or stating what I'm doing. So we need, otherwise we just sit down And it just becomes, you know, who's got the most body tattoos and body piercing and whatever, who's the coolest musician, and it just becomes like a rock and roll thing. So, and it's depressing. And people come just, you know, the girls come to look for a hot guy, and then guys come to look for a hot girl. People come for some nice food, or if they're a little pious, they come to get some, to purify themselves of their sins, or maybe like that. We want to contemplate what we're doing, what this kirtan is. And therefore, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, we're reading that statement from him, the performance of kirtan, which is service of Lord Gaurasunda. The worship of Gauranga Mahaprabhu means the worship of Krishna. The worship of Krishna is the worship of Gaura. Or Tate Krishna Bhaji Kore Guru to Seva. As Chaitanya Charitamrita says, my Krishna Bhajan is my Guru Seva. There's no difference. But in the beginning, because we're so conditioned, you know, I went to so many rock and roll concerts before I was a devotee. I was a street musician, something. I'm a terrible musician, you know that. But anyway, I grew up with musicians, something, and I like music. And so then when we come to Krishna consciousness, we just tend to replace the Beatles or the Rolling Stones or Led Zeppelin or whatever with the kirtan. And we're trying to enjoy that. But we need to go beyond that. And the pathway to go beyond that, we have to have some philosophy. We have to have some discussion and dedicate the kirtan. Is that helpful, Lon?
Yes, thank you.
It's a really, really important point. Thank you for bringing that up. Ujjwal Prabhu, do you want to say anything? Any reflections? Thank you for taking part. I hope you feel comfortable. Everybody should be nice to Ujjwal. He's really a good guy. And I think he's going to bless us with his association every week. Hare Krishna.
It's all a blessing for me. Thank you for having me, Prabhu. Your katha is always quite inspiring, so it's really a joy to attend. One thing that it's been sticking out for me lately, just in my personal musing, so I guess those types of things always strike most poignantly. You were bringing up this point about Narahari Sarkar and Nityananda Prabhu and how he went around and then he went to his Gurudev and then he went to Nityananda Prabhu and then Nityananda Prabhu said, now I will accept you. And this is just really ringing, again, very poignantly for me lately, because, and I guess your closing statement about being very inspired or only inspired by people who speak with pramana or who speak from the Shastra, I very much resonate with that. I very much appreciate that, because I almost to a fault like Shastra Praman, just because of the way intellectual sphere is and what inspires me and my own devotional practice and Shravanam, etc. And I find it very interesting how these 2 points are juxtaposed next to each other, that there should be very, very strong fixity in one's Gurudev and strong fixity in a Shastric basis. But the ultimate point that's kind of in the harmonization that's kind of coming forward for me is that really faith is such a fragile thing, and faith in one's teacher is such an important thing. And that really it's such a delicate kind of balance and such an important thing, that the gift that we're being given by our teacher is really the thing to ultimately put our chips on, and that all the pramana is supposed to flow towards that. So I'm sorry if that comes out a bit tangentially, and, you know, it's just been a very, prominent thought process for me in the last few years as I've journeyed into Sanskrit and all the things that I've been doing, and how important it is to take shelter of my Gurudev. And I'm thinking of Bhakti Ekesham Gurudeva Tatmana from the Bhagavatam, that we should worship with one-pointed bhakti, taking the Guru as our very self, taking our teacher as our very self. And so, I don't know if you have anything to say on that, but that's really wrong.
Well, for ourselves, coming from the West, and it's nice hearing devotees from America who have a nice grasp of the English language like you do, and also Bana, and hearing you express yourself. It's very difficult for us to separate the social situation of our Krishna conscious movement from Krishna consciousness itself. We tend to mix the two up. because we've come, we have the institution, we have the society and the leaders and things, and we equate the two with each other. And in fact, if somebody leaves our temple, if someone criticizes our ISKCON society, the GBC, then we consider them to be great offenders. We don't want to associate with them. If someone goes sometimes to the Gaudiya Mutt or some Babajis or something, or we speak of them in a disparaging way. I don't think Dave Madak does that. God bless him. But in many places they do. And I found out, incidentally, that many of the Babajis do the same thing. Many of the Gaudiya Mutt devotees do the same thing. And I don't think it's necessarily because they're sectarian, but they do that because they see that neophyte devotees need to be fixed.
Yeah.
So this is their guru. But when they become mature, it's not that you can't have friends. I have some of the best experiences we've had in Parikramas and Jagannath Puri. Two of the ones that I can think of right off, one was with a Jewish couple from Israel, and the other was with a Muslim couple. And they were Jewish and Muslim, but they liked the devotees. And they were friendly. And we didn't preach to them at all. In fact, I just the opposite. I asked them many questions about their tradition because I took it as an opportunity to learn something from them. And at the same time, we shared with them. And they were very interested to see our experience of Kirtan and Darshan and Parikrama and things. And we took them around in that kind of mood. Another point that came to my mind when you're speaking was something which I've heard elaborated on in a beautiful way by His Holiness Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj, who was a wonderful speaker, a very, very deep devotee. Narottam Das Thakur famously says that Sadhu Shastra Guru Vakya Titeta Kuriya Aikya. He gives these three pramanas. These are the three basic pramanas that we have. And Bhakti, which is that we have Sadhu, Shastra, and Guru. But Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj pointed out something very brilliant, that there's a krama. Krama means a sequence. There's a sequence to what Narottam Das Thakur presents. The first thing is that we make friends with some sadhu. Now, someone may say, well, the first thing is I got a book. That's very wonderful. And many devotees do get books, but it's very rare that someone reads a book and says, yeah, I want to go join the temple because I read the book. You read the book and you want to go to the temple and meet the devotees. And when you meet the devotees and someone's really nice and sweet to you and loving, you make some friendship with them. Then after some time, usually you start thinking about moving to the temple. So the first thing, the Shastra introduces us to the devotees in that sense, the books. But what is the sadhu? The sadhu means someone who speaks Shastra. And if the sadhu doesn't speak Shastra, then what's the basis of that sadhu? Just speaking about himself, or how did you join Krishna consciousness, Prabhu? How many, in most sanghas you go to in our society, that's the first question everybody wants to ask. I'm not against that. It's not necessarily a bad question, but let's contemplate for a moment. Why do we want to speak about that instead of speaking about Bhagavad Gita or the Bhagavatam or something? Because that's something that's a little more mundane. It's something I can relate to. That you were a deadhead. You were into the Grateful Dead and whatever before you joined. And how did you become a devotee? Well, I can relate to that also because I also like the Grateful Dead. And you're speaking about something mundane, and that's we can relate to that. But sadhu is someone who speaks Shastra, and from that mercy of sadhu, you get Shastra, and then by the mercy of Shastra, what do we get? We get Guru. When we understand what Guru is. Guru is a sadhu who speaks Shastra. So I really appreciate your comments. Thank you, Joe. That's good. And I hope you take part more often, Prabhu. Thank you for the contribution. Let's see, Krishna Balaram Prabhu. Would you like to share anything? Are you there? We're good to see you.
Yeah, Prabhu. I joined a bit late, so apologies for that. But unfortunately, at this point, not much to share. Just inspired by what has to be said. Thanks, Prabhu.
Just hear your voice, it makes us happy, really, seriously. Just knowing that you're there. And thank you for taking part. I appreciate it. No reflections from you tonight then, huh?
All dark, Prabhu, as you can see.
Okay. I don't think so, but Hare Krishna. we look forward to getting you guys association again in a more tangential way than just on the internet here. Let me turn to some of the devotees here in the room. Ishvan, do you have anything you want to share? I have a question. Ishvan's here in the room with us. Let me turn the camera so we can see Ishvan. Ishvan's our landlord. We have to be really nice to him because he's letting us stay here in this comfortable flat. Speak real loud for me, please.
I have two questions.
Okay, I'm going to repeat what you're going to say because you're not speaking loud enough.
Okay. So you use this word like esoteric. Why you use this?
We say that a topic is esoteric, meaning that it's not something that you can perceive with the mundane senses. It's something which requires divine revelation. And that's bhakti. Therefore, Krishna in the Gita, when he says that Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam, he says that the topmost knowledge, Raja Vidya, is Raja Guhyam, it's the most confidential. And it's the purest, Pavitamita Mutam, but it's Praktak Sabhagamam. It's something which has to be practically experienced. So in that sense, Krishna consciousness is a mystical, esoteric practice where we want to have some direct perception. And therefore, it's absolute. If Krishna consciousness could only be practiced by people who could read the Bhagavad Gita, then I would have to say it's not absolute. Because what about the people who can't read? What about the persons who are blind? We were recently, where was that, Krishna? Was that in Ukraine? Someone was asking us about Braille. In Ukraine recently, someone was asking us about Prabhupada's books in Braille. And it's a complicated thing because I looked into that, and Braille in English is one Braille. Braille in Hungarian is another thing. Braille in Ukrainian is another thing. Braille in Russian is another thing. They're all different. And you might have some English Braille, I don't know, but it's something which hasn't come along yet. So anyway, my point is that if you had only people who could read could become Krishna conscious, then it's not real. But even if someone's blind, someone who can't read, they can become Krishna conscious because it's absolute. That's esoteric. And understanding that it requires something more than just our dull material senses. It requires some divine revelation of mercy. Is that okay? It's a good question. And Andy, do you have anything you want to share? Any thoughts here? Find you there. That's Andy. Andy's like the face of the Govinda's restaurant in Debrecen.
Well, to be honest, I'm too shy to say anything. Which still could be said. We should mix the service of our spiritual master. And then the one I'm learning of this determination in my heart, the other still push someone.
Just hold on one second. Chaitanya, can you hear her? You can't hear what she's saying. Okay, so I'm going to have to repeat what she's saying. You won't be able to speak loud enough. It's okay. So she's just commenting that she's appreciating that we were saying that how we have to be fixed in service to our spiritual master, and she's working on that. Okay?
Yeah. Yes, and also at the same time we said that we should respect others' spiritual practices and the way they live. But it is very important to be fixed on other person's service.
Yeah, and so she went on that the same, we should be fixed in our service to our Gurudev, we should be Nishta to our Gurudev, but at the same time we should respect everybody else. If we don't do that, our Gurudev won't be pleased, and it just becomes a cult. And we've seen it too many times in our society, and it's not a surprise. It's something any sociologist, any historian of religion could have predicted, that when people come in society, Some of them are going to get caught up in personality cults. And they're going to like certain gurus, certain leaders because they're charismatic, they're handsome, they have a lot of followers and whatever. And they're not going to appreciate them for the right reasons. And that's just natural because as a society, we're not very deep. We're new, our society. When you see it in high school, there's so many girls who go crazy over some boy who's a movie star or something like that. And the guy has a completely empty brain, other than the drugs that he takes quite often. Whatever, he's just completely useless. But all the girls just go completely nuts. And if they see him at a concert, they start shaking or something. So we have that propensity that we appreciate people in a shallow way, and we're more shallow. So the first thing in Krishna consciousness, we need to learn to become independent thinkers. Prabhupada spoke about that. He wrote a letter about that to Purandar Prabhu. And we mentioned this the other day, how important it is to become independent thinkers and not just worship Gurudev or the Maharaj because everybody else does. That's not bad, but better than just doing it because everybody else is worshiping him. Everybody was worshiping Hitler also in Germany. Just because many people worship someone doesn't necessarily mean they're good. And so many people, and some of the boys in high school, everybody says this particular boy is so very, very good. And then the girl falls in love with him because everybody says he's good. But it turns out that he's very good with about 10 different girls. And there's a real nonsense about you. So we have to be very careful. Is that helpful? It's reflecting your comment. Anything more?
Yes.
I'm going to repeat what you say, so a little bit of time.
So when you said that his name was Malabari Chakravarti, and in the end, his face was hit and the latest with it hit him afterward. But before he was passed on to the members of the district succession. So if I wish to render service to the spiritual master whom I wish to approach, then in what way should I think? Or should I keep in mind those who are the members of the district succession? So what should I not forget about them?
So Rupa Goswami, he says that we should follow our previous acharyas, Rupa Goswami. It's important. And we do that as a service to our Gurudev. It's not that we separate the worship of Srila Prabhupada from the worship of Rupa Goswami. It's not that we think, Rupa Goswami is not important. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati is not important. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is not important. Prabhupada's all that's important. That's not going to be pleasing to Srila Prabhupada. And we worship Srila Prabhupada by being faithful to Prabhupada and trying to understand Prabhupada through the words of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and Rupa Goswami, because we'll find in the heart of Srila Prabhupada Rupa Goswami's words and Bhaktisiddhanta's words and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, etc. So we're doing it because we want to come closer to our Gurudev. So that's a very, very important principle. Worship of Guru is not like something in the material world. It's not like being a what's the word? Rock stars, they have the group. It's not like being a groupie, like the Beatles. Krishna suggesting that I turn this back to myself. It's not like being a groupie. Yeah, like the Beatles. When the Beatles first came to America, girls would faint in the concert. they would faint. They'd see the Beatles. Oh my God! And they would just become so overwhelmed with feelings they would just faint. And they're worshiping them by giving them money, by putting their pictures up, by having badges of them on their clothes and their backpack and whatever like that. So in a mundane way, sometimes we think this is what worship of Guru means. I give him money, I talk about him, I listen to his recordings all the time, I have his pictures and everything. And that's one aspect of it. But that's the external aspect. And we see in that aspect even the followers of the Beatles. And that they were also there. We don't want to just become groupies. Those girls weren't thinking of anything very deep for the most part. Guru is pleased by someone who understands. In the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, there's a statement that the charity or the donation that Guru wants from us is our sincere inquiry in the spiritual life. He wants to see that. As Shiva Maharaj was telling this devotee I heard the other day, he said that if you distribute one book to one person, I consider that more important than what they say 1,000 Vyas, 100 Vyas Puja offerings. But that's real worship of a sadhu. We understand their heart and what they want. Is that helpful, Andy? Thank you for taking part today. Anybody else here in the room want to share anything?
I find it
Just turn the camera.
that you made this comment about the difficulty of separating the social situation of Krishna consciousness from Krishna consciousness. Especially because we emphasize.
Just a second, I don't know if they can hear you. Chaitanya, could you hear her? Okay, so I'm going to repeat just this last couple of sentences. You said, unless you want to walk over there or something, it's okay. She was just saying that I want to get a better mic sometimes so we can make it easier. She's saying that she appreciated her comments that it's difficult for us sometimes to separate the social aspect of Krishna consciousness from Krishna consciousness.
Especially because we stress Sadhu Sangha so much.
Yeah, especially because we stress Sadhu Sangha so much.
I love this. Point from Bhagavad Goswami that if Krishna is not there, and even if the person, if Radharani is not there, even if Krishna personally calls me, I will not go. But even if Radharani doesn't call me, and if for some madness, out of some madness, she goes to Dwarka, I will run there.
So you're just appreciating this point from Raghunath Goswami's teachings that even if Krishna calls me, I won't go there if Radharani is not there. On the other hand, if Radharani is there, even if she out of some madness she's left Vrindavan or something down there, I'm going to go running there even if I'm not invited.
So these statements that my Guru also makes, how what you said now, that is the bhava of Srimati Radharani that we want to facilitate and we want to search for in Mahaprabhu, and we saw in Mahaprabhu and in many people his pleasure, her pleasure. These are very attractive to the heart, but at the same time, I don't want to be artificial. So how do we really get there?
Okay, that's a little much for me to try to repeat it. You're saying that we shouldn't. Just repeat what you said, Krishna, please.
Okay. So it's the bhava of Radharani that we want to facilitate and we want to search for in Mahaprabhu.
So, okay, I understand.
And these points are really attractive to the heart for my Gurudev, but I don't want to be artificial about it.
So she's just pointing out, we're speaking today about the bhava of Radharani, and this thing's very attractive. We want to follow that, but at the same time, we don't want to be artificial. As Andy was saying, some people, they want to do kirtan and they want to have some ecstasy, and sometimes we want to show that to everybody. We don't want to be artificial about things. We cannot separate ourselves from our Gurudev. And just as a small child, when he's learning to walk, he holds onto the hand of the mother. And the mother walks with that child. The child can't function without the mother. So in the same way, we can't function, especially in the beginning, without Gurudev. Gurudev is helping us to walk. And so we don't separate these feelings from Gurudev. Rather, as we were mentioning in response to Andy's point, that we see the importance of our previous acharyas, and the mood of Rupa Goswami and Bhaktisiddhanta and Vishnu Chakravarti, etc., because we want to understand the heart of Srila Prabhupada. We want to understand the heart of our Gurudev. So we study these things. We want to understand the bhav of Radharani, not in an experiential way, that we're going to have the Gopi Bhav Club, which Srila Prabhupada didn't like, but that now by doing this, I'm going to please my Gurudev and understand something about his mood, something in his heart, because the Sakhis, because we see Guru as Radha Priya Sakhi, as an intimate girl companion of Radharani. And Rupa Goswami and Bhagavad Goswami described that heart of Radharani becomes manifest in the hearts of her intimate Sakhis. Therefore, we were reading about the story of Narahari Chakravarti, how Krishna said, he was commenting on the Lita, he said that only my flute understands my feelings. What was the point of him making that comment? Only my flute understands my feelings. He's reflecting that this is amazing, that Lalita understands the mood of Radha. Whereas in my case, who is it who really understands my mood? So we want to understand the mood of our Gurudev. I mean, our Gurudev we see as Radha Priya Sakhi, who understands the deep emotions of Radharani. So we understand the mood of Radharani in that way. And for us, it's also inspirational that we'll understand how to approach Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and how to approach Gurudev. But we should always do this service. If we approach in the mood of Dasya, servitorship, that I'm doing this as a service from my Gurudev, I'm hearing, as Bani Bihari was commenting also, a very important point, that we want to hear as a service. It changes the whole mood of everything. Everybody in the world goes to the movies, we go to rock concerts, we do things for our pleasure, because I like to do it. But this hearing and chanting, if we want the proper effect, we should be doing it as service. Tate Krishna Bhaji Kori Guru Sevan, Chaitanya Charitamrita says. Okay?
I spent the last few days trying to chant my japa with the meditation that this is service, and we're trying to hear it for Krishna's pleasure, which is really kind of, it's not such a heavy thing. How do I know it is pleasing to him? I'm trying to think of him, I'm trying to offer it to him. How do I know it's really pleasing to him?
Well, how do we know? She's saying that I've been trying to offer my chanting to Guru and Krishna, but how do I know it's really pleasing to them? Well, you can think you write a letter to Guru Maharaj and say, well, I'm thinking instead of doing kirtan, I'm thinking to sing some rock and roll songs on the japa mala instead. Is that okay? What will his response be? He's not going to be happy with that. And think about how happy he is when you chant. Think about how happy we are when we go out in the street and we're distributing a book or something, and someone says, wow, this is amazing. And what do I do? And you say, well, you chant this mantra. And you give them a card or something with a Maha Mantra, and they start, and they start chanting. And how happy, how joyful you feel. We feel so joyful when we see someone chanting like that. And we can see in the mood of Guru, in the mood of Sadhu, their mood is not that they want people to do bhajan about them. Srila Prabhupada commented in Morning Walk, he said it's not that we're telling people to chant Bhaktivedanta Swami, Bhaktivedanta Swami, Bhaktivedanta Swami. We're saying we chant Krishna, Krishna. We chant the names of Krishna. That's what's pleasing to Guru. It's not that Gurudev is, the Prabhupada wants us to make a big, huge temple with a giant deity of himself and just forget about Gauritai and forget about Radha Krishna, and we just got Prabhupada. In India, we have the Jai Guru Sampradaya, Nityananda followers. And that's basically what they do. They worship their Guru. And they don't worship Radha Krishna, they just have their Guru, they consider everything. And there's some philosophical point about that. But as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, let's read this over again here. He said that with kirtan, the service of Gaura Sundar. The worship of Gaura is a worship of Krishna, the worship of Krishna is a worship of Gaura. So in our kirtan, We're doing kirtan, Krishna kirtan. But Krishna kirtan is the worship of our Gurudev. And we worship our Gurudev by doing Krishna kirtan. These two, it goes both ways. And we should have confidence in it. And the way to get that confidence is we come close to that sadhu. We associate with him and we see what kind of kirtan does he want to do, because everyone does kirtan. If you go for Christmas dinner with your family, some people are going to do kirtan in the form of talking about their family. And did you hear, I had this operation. Did you hear that Aunt Jessie, she's going to get married again? This and this. And they're doing some kind of kirtan. But it's Gramya Katha. It's some mundane katha, where sadhu is someone who's always speaking to people about Krishna. So then we can understand by session, this is what they like. Okay? I want to finish up today. It's a little late. Chaitanya Prabhu, do you want to comment on anything? I can't hear you. You're muted, Prabhu. Still can't hear you. Still can't hear you. Is it just me? Bonnie, can you hear him? Anybody else?
We can't hear him.
I think I have a problem with my mic. Okay. We'll let you go. No comment. Krishna took away your words today. All right. So I want to thank everybody very much. And I want to thank Ishwan also for giving us some place to stay here, giving us a little bit of a chance to do some programs once a week with the devotees and have some chance for some writing and things. And Bana, I'm not forgetting, I got some things to do for the website. I'm trying to finish up a few binders coming up in that. Our next binder is going to be about Jiva Goswami, and the binder after that's going to be about how to find Guru, taking out some special artwork, some old pictures and things, and different old little known songs and stuff for that. I'm excited with that. Okay, so we'll go ahead and stop there. Chaitanya Prabhu, please fix your mic next time, okay? It was working before when we started. You're just trying to cheat us. Yeah, I know. Anyway, thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveda Bhakta Binda ki, Go Premanandi.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Pavani, Vaishnava.